What's up, guys? Steve here from the 716 Car Guys.
Going on?
Every car guy has those horror stories, those things that go wrong with their cars and their projects. If you're in the car game long enough, you have those stories. One of the worst ones I think recently that I heard of is Peter's story with his vet. We're going to get into it. We're going to tell you about it and what happened to the poor car and what's going to happen to it next. Like and subscribe. What year's your vet again?
It's a 2011. I mean, some people call it a base model, but I don't really think it actually was called a base from the factory. But it's
they would never call a Corvette that.
Yeah, it's a narrow body. It's a 1LT. Nothing real special about it. No heated seats, but it's got the removable roof and.
Yeah, and it is the cool color. I'll be honest. I was always a little jealous of the color of your car.
Cyber gray metallic.
They had that color for vets for a while. Always see that type of gray on a lot of them.
Yeah.
When we went to the Corvette Museum, in the parking lot, there was a C8, I believe, and his license plate was Cyber, and it was that color gray, so that was cool.
Yeah.
But you bought the car, you had some fun with it during the summer, but let's
probably start with how we got the car.
Yeah.
Because this is a true horror story of not only just anything happening in your car, but I guess you could say like a purchase gone wrong. Like what's the worst thing could possibly happen on an expensive toy that you wanted to buy?
Yeah. So you bought the car. It's we have a little video. It's just like a little vlog of cruising down.
We'll paste it in here somewhere. Yeah.
Yeah. And it's just us cruising down to Kentucky to pick the car up. And what made you pick this car, this Corvette?
So the story started because I wanted to buy a house, but because of COVID and a bunch of other stuff, for some reason, the interest rates for houses were stupid low. So everyone's trying to buy a house, and everyone's getting into bidding wars, and it wasn't worth it for me to put so much money to buy a house. So I figured I'd put it off for a year or two. And then I figured...
Also, let the record show, I want on record, you can't race a house.
Debatable.
There's that one video. Okay, go on.
There's that one.
That log cabin thing. Okay, go on.
So I figured I would take some money and buy myself something that I can enjoy for the next year or so, just so I can have some fun.
Yeah, toy, yeah.
And so I was looking on a bunch of Corvette forums and looking on Auto Trader for probably 2 months. And I originally was going to buy a 2011 Camaro that was the...
Is that the one you showed me?
It was like Synergy Green.
Yeah.
Real nice, like lime green color.
Kind of wish you would. Yeah, it was a cool car.
And it was super sketchy posting on Auto Trader. And it had 3 pictures, no interior shots, no engine shots, nothing. And in the description, it was like 2 sentences long, but it mentioned something about being supercharged. I was like, this seems weird.
Do you remember what the price was? Was it around the same as like what I paid for my vet or something like that?
It was 20.
It was a very competitive number.
Yeah, it was like 20 or 22. So
nice car.
For the condition of the car, the mileage, I think it only had like 15,000 miles on it, and the fact that it was supercharged for such a low price, I was like, something's weird about this. So I emailed the person just to find out what was going on, and turns out that it was a car that this woman won in a divorce.
Oh, yeah.
And so she was just trying to get rid of it.
Seen that a bunch of times.
Yeah. And I told her that I was interested, but she was in Chicago and we're in Buffalo, so I can't just drive over there and take a look at it. So I wanted her to send me videos of it, like starting, running, all that stuff. She's like, yeah, I can get you that tomorrow. So the next day comes, I don't have any email or anything, so I email her again. I was like, hey, can I get those videos today? And she's like, oh, someone just put a deposit down on the car. I was like...
Yeah, that's how that works.
Well, there goes that. So I'm back on the hunt for a car, and Chris actually showed me a posting on one of the Corvette Facebook
groups. It was. I forgot I found it. It was in...
And
good job.
Fault.
Yeah.
It's
wow, I forgot. Yes, I was the one who seen the car posted in...
Real cool.
Was it like C6 Corner or something like that on Facebook? Wow, I'm sorry. Wow, I totally forgot that I was the one that said you should check this out.
So we'll have some pictures posted in here, but the car was...
The car looked good. It was everything you wanted.
Like, if I were to picture a base model vet how I would want it to look, this is exactly how the car would look. It had the nice wide wheels on it. It had the lip on the front.
It's a 1920 Stagger, right?
Yes. 20s in the back, 19s in the front.
And it had a cam, and it sounded nasty. So, because every time when we went down to Kentucky, I had a couple, like, fellow co-workers like, well, why would you drive all the way to Kentucky for a car? But
Especially a Corvette. I heard that a lot too because they're common cars.
And they're not. That's coming from non-car
the color,
people.
the cam, the transmission, the wheels,
everything.
I advised against it though. You always want to go local first.
He did. Dylan did say that was stupid, but he also says everything's stupid.
I was looking local, Chris.
Almost everything.
Chris sent me a couple posts on Facebook Marketplace of a few vets, but they were all either high mileage or whooped or way too expensive. So I started looking elsewhere and came across this post. Perfect, had a stage 3 cam in it, and already had the engine gone through by the previous owner because something else happened to it. So he took it to a shop in, where was it, Tennessee, I think?
Yeah, it was in Tennessee. It was like a few hours away from where we were. 3 hours.
I think it was Lethal Performance.
There it was. It was Lethal. Yep.
And so
I've heard of them before this story.
We called them and checked everything out on the car, just like you should before you buy any toy. Try to do as much research as you can.
So I gave the kid a $500 deposit on it so he would hold it because I was really interested. And we set up a road trip in my F-150. It was 4 of us big dudes packed in there, and that was
a fun time. I enjoyed that.
Yeah.
I know Peter was stressed that whole video.
Oh yeah,
I don't blame you. Not one bit.
I had just gotten off a 12-hour night shift. I got no sleep.
He was up for how many? Do you remember how many hours?
I was up
on that whole project.
26 straight hours.
Not something I personally like doing while driving, but it was still fun. Yeah. The Airbnb was a blast. Oh, yeah. It was a good
saw the Ed Roth cars at the Corvette Museum, which is
the whole
went
to the
reason
museum.
I actually wanted to go. That's
we got to see
Sorry, Peter.
a whole herd of Geo Metros.
That was neat. You can
there
see all
were like
these
7
videos
of them.
in our road trip videos and Corvette videos. So look back a little bit. We like getting the views racked up. So if you guys want to watch those and then come back to this so you can get caught up, go do that now. But
actually would be that is a good recommendation. Yeah. Corvette road trip video or epic Corvette road trip. Something.
So you bought the car. We'll skip ahead. We went to the museum. We drove it back.
Sketchy.
Yeah. Oh, we hit a thunderstorm. Oh my God. We hit every type of weather. Hot, cold, rain, everything.
We were an hour into this trip on the way back. Mind you, this car has spanked Nitto NT05s on them.
They were shot.
It was bad, and it started downpouring, and Chris was driving because I was exhausted. I didn't want to drive. So Chris was driving. We hit the rainstorm. We started sliding all over the place. So we were probably doing, 50 miles an hour on the thruway?
At most. There were parts during the rain around turns, certain textured pavement or pavement on the highway that the rear end wanted to walk around. I swear we were probably doing like 35, 40 around a bend, and you felt it. You get that sinking feeling in your gut, so it was sketchy.
We saw it wiggle a little bit. I'm like, I know that doesn't look like much, but when you're in a car, that feels kind of...
And it's like I said, it was. I can't put in words how gnarly of a downpour this was. This was like your wipers on max speed and still having a hard time seeing, and an older car, not older, but we're waiting on the defrost. We're just trying to figure the car out. It's all new, so...
So this is where we came across the first 2 issues. One issue being that 5th gear grinds no matter what. I don't know how in the world someone managed to mess up 5th gear in a manual transmission, but someone did it.
Yeah, had a little...
they were doing it.
You could feel it. Yeah, they had to have been power shifting with everything they had into 5th gear. But
and then second one was it turns out, I found out later, that one of the front wheels was bent. They're custom 3-piece forged wheels, so they're supposed to be strong, but on a wheel like that, it's super easy to bend them, especially if you have low pro tires on them. So we had a real bad vibration on the way back, and we were like, all right, something like we got to try.
What was our speed? What was our max speed?
Max speed was like 65.
So we're driving back from Tennessee. After the rain clears up, we're going to pick up the pace. Now we're maxing out at 65 miles an hour in this Corvette trying to drive.
It smoothed out though.
It did. That's what.
Do you remember why it smoothed out?
No, I just remember the roof.
We pulled into a gas station to fuel up both vehicles. We took the roof off because it was
stopped raining. We figured what else keep us awake than the rush of the wind. So we take the roof off on the side of the gas station on the highway. Vibration completely smooths out. As soon as we get on the road, I take it right back up and set cruise where it started vibrating, brought it a little past that speed, It was fine. We kept pushing it. What did we broke over? We went over 100 with it.
Oh yeah, we were
once or twice.
Yeah, and
The one time
crazy
I lost you
taking the
guys.
roof off this car, I just smoothed it right out.
This was probably the only time Peter will get to see his 2 cars he owns face off. I was in his
Oh yeah, I did.
Eco
We did
Boost
race.
F-150, and I lost him in traffic. So I came like a freight train at like 110 miles an hour to pass him, and Chris saw it in the rear view, and he hammered on it. I wish we had a video of it because I literally got right there, and then
Yeah.
that
Oh,
was perfect.
we gotta put that video in of us going through the tunnel.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, I'll pull that one.
I think that's Cincinnati, yeah. But fast forward, bought the car, made it home. I remember it was leaking. What was it? Brake fluid a little bit.
Power steering.
Power steering
Power
fluid.
steering.
So other than the bent wheel and the power steering fluid, the car was fine. You were driving it and enjoying it and having fun with it. So after that, you went in to get an alignment.
Yeah,
And this is where
so
we run into our first tragic
Our first major.
Yeah.
issue.
Uh-oh.
Yeah.
so they put the rack in, and I was driving it, and for some reason, whenever I would hit like the smallest bump, the steering wheel would really like jerk almost out of my hands, and I was like, this is really weird. And the shop couldn't figure out why, and I couldn't figure out why. And then the one day we were at Custom Radio where Chris works, and I noticed that when the steering wheel was straight, one wheel was straight and the other one was like cocked out like that. So I was like, all right, that's got to be the reason why, because whenever you'd hit a bump, the wheels would just like.
Makes sense.
So I took pictures and I sent it to my buddy. I was like, hey, can you guys like fix the alignment on this? He's like, yeah, no problem. Bring it by tomorrow. So I dropped it off. They had it for a full day, and they said that they fixed it. I went to go get there the next morning and picked it up, was walking out, started it, and immediately was making the worst ticking sound. I'll send you guys the video of it so you can put it in. But it sounded like a typewriter. Like, a typewriter on steroids. It
A
was
good old
ridiculous.
fashioned sewing machine.
Yeah, sewing machine.
The LS noises, but
And
worse.
So I immediately shut it off. I was like, hey, you guys need to come out and take a look at this. And they claimed they didn't beat on it. They claimed that they just kind of took it down the street to check the alignment, and that was it.
It was like that when it came in.
Yeah, they claimed that they heard some type
That's
of
been
noise
like
when
that.
they pulled it in to do the alignment, but then they
Right.
said it went away. So I was like, all right, that's kind of weird because it wasn't making any kind of noise when I dropped it off. And they said that they didn't beat on it. They just took it down the road and back. That was it. They brought it back, shut it off, and that was that. So to me, immediately it sounded like a lifter tick. So I was talking to a bunch of people, Chris and some other people I know that work on LS motors, and they said it is almost impossible for that to just happen out of nowhere. Like
Yeah,
it is
LS.
possible, but you need to be
You
pounding.
need to be hitting rev.
Yeah, you need to be pounding on a car. And the more I thought about it,
With the cam and the wrong lifters and
yeah,
valve spring.
Yeah, if
Yeah,
that's
you
not
could
set up
have-
just perfect and it revs that high,
Yeah.
you're kissing a valve.
So
You're-
what I realized was since the synchros on the trans are kind of messed up, in like every gear. So you got to really want each gear when you're shifting into
Yeah, I
it.
remember that
It's,
when I did
it's
that.
similar with my car too. That's like the
And-
master cylinder thing we're trying to update.
Right before that, it may have been my fault, I don't know, but second gear started grinding a little bit. Not every time, but like every once in a while I would take the car out. Normally when it was just cold. So
It was it all times or just when the RPMs were higher?
second gear?
Yeah.
It was mainly when it was cold, like when I first started driving
Okay.
it. So
I've heard or read in forums that the TR6060s that we have are pretty poor when it's cold, and
Yeah.
they do take a while to warm up. Because my trans, I have the same trans, same car. It doesn't have the same problems, but they're pretty similar, and it's hard to not want to go and over research
Yeah.
things. But
So the only thing that I can think of is that they did take the car out to drive it, to test drive it, and someone did try to do some quick shifting or something with it. Because I mean, it's a Corvette sports car. Someone's
Yeah,
gonna
you
want
gotta
to.
have fun with it.
You
That's
gotta
what
give
they're
it a
good for.
little
They're not
berries, I
supposed to
guess.
just go to country clubs and cruise nights.
Yeah.
They're supposed to be a driver's
I
car.
mean, a shop, like, I wouldn't think that they would beat on someone's car, but it happens. It's a sports car.
Hell, I have the same
So-
one, and I still wanted to beat on it.
Yeah, so they probably didn't know that the transmission was messed up, so they went to go do a little spirited driving, ended up missing a gear.
Spirited
He
driving.
meant to put it in third and put it back in first
Yeah,
at like
and
90.
like pegged it off rev limiter, and bam, that was done. So we.
So what was the initial? Like, what was the verdict? What was hurting the motor?
So I was gonna have them rip it apart because the car was already there. So I was like, why would I take it anywhere else? So they were gonna take it apart. I ended up thinking about it a lot. Came back and I had a flatbed come pick up the car and take it to another shop because I didn't trust them. And then went to another shop up in the North Towns, and they took it apart. Realized that it was a lifter that was messed up. What had happened was the lifter spun inside the bore, and so it was sitting sideways, and the cam was grinding down on the lifter. And since it was sideways, it couldn't spin, so it started grinding it down. There was probably about a good 1/4 inch of metal that was shaved off the end of the lifter.
You have the pictures
Why
of
did
that
it do
stuff?
that?
I do. I can
Because
send
of
them to you.
plastic
I think the trays. I
were-
think they
The
fall
tray.
out of the tray. Or something with. There's an issue with the
You're
plastic
supposed to
package.
replace them.
So-
Yeah.
A lot of people don't.
I'll
like
yeah,
I'll
yeah,
get to
they
that in a
don't.
second.
Yeah.
But the lifter was
Said
ground
that would
down
happen
so
too.
much that it got to the point where it was past the roller and it got into the actual like cylinder part and it blew out the sides on both sides of the lifter. So there's chunks of metal and metal
It's
dust.
like a
all-
needle bearing in there.
Yeah.
too.
all in my
So
engine.
it's done. So,
So-
motor's blown up.
Was there anything salvageable off of it? Though?
So-
He said that it was in the pickup, right? There was
We're-
brass in the pickup.
So we haven't been able to really like tear everything apart to figure out what's
Right.
going on. I'll get to that in a second. But yeah, going back to the lifter tray, the guy who has the car right now, thinks that they are the original lifter trays from when the car was built.
Yeah.
And that engine, this is the third time that engine's been apart.
Oh,
So
really?
they've been reusing the same lifter trays every time. So it probably got worn down, and that's how it spun, and
Yeah.
that was that.
They're not even that much money. I hate when people cheap out.
Yeah.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
don't. I think
So
what's an
dumb.
LS7 instead of brand new
LS
lifters and
people always
trays?
do that though.
20
They try to like
bucks.
Here we
reuse.
go.
They try to reuse
Oh,
as
boy.
much parts all the time.
Yeah.
You ever see
It's
like,
so good.
oh, I'm gonna reuse the head gaskets
Yeah.
in my
No.
turbo build.
I really,
And-
I hope people really don't do that. I, think
Yeah.
that's just, I hope
Yeah,
it's just like
sloppy
a peanut.
builds. No,
Yeah.
that sloppy builds.
Yeah,
Probably,
I argue
sure.
with people on Instagram all the time. It's like
I
a
bet
lot,
you
a
do.
lot of LS people do that.
See, the shop in Tennessee that fixed the car when the previous owner before me blew it up,
Yeah.
or did, I forgot what happened, but I'm thinking since the kid didn't have much money, that's why he was selling the car, he just wanted to get out from under it, he told that shop, like, listen, I'm trying to spend like as little money as possible, just fix it, reuse whatever you can, and that's going to be it.
Yeah.
So I'm assuming they probably reuse the lifter trays,
and we know when the kid horsed the car, there was ET
Yeah.
slips in the center.
Oh,
console.
yeah.
I imagine probably just pulled out the destroyed lifter, tossed a lifter in it,
Yeah.
and slapped it back together. Didn't
Yeah.
It's
change the
always
cam.
limited time when someone does something like
Yeah.
that.
Yeah.
I'll be honest, this is kind of doomed from the get-go. I didn't really ask all the questions that I should have asked. I didn't really do.
Yeah,
That's
live and
tough.
you
'Cause
learn,
you
though.
can't see through the motor. You don't. There's
We've
you can
all
only
been
look
fucked
at
on
so
at
much.
least one car.
Everyone's always been gotten on
Yeah.
a car.
We
I've
all have one where
I
like,
bought a-
wow, why
A
did I
junk
do that?
406 motor.
I have like 2 or 3 actually.
yeah.
Like what the fuck?
So we figured out what the actual issue was, and so the plan was to rip the whole block out of the car, strip it down to the bare short block,
That's the right way to do it.
and then take it to a machine shop.
So
So
only
they
way to
could-
make sure it don't happen again.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So the plan was to take it to a local machine shop, have them rip it apart, take a look at all the bearings and everything, make sure everything was good. And the original plan was if everything's good on the inside, to just leave it, put a new cam and lifters in it, and just drive it.
I wouldn't do that
if
because
the,
if you spin a lifter, it'll fuck up the bore for the
Well,
lifter.
they're
See,
gonna
this,
check that.
this is
Yeah.
what
It could have happened
this
already.
is where it's going, because I don't know if the bore for the lifter is messed up, because if it is, you need a whole new block.
Yeah.
You can't.
If it got stuck at all, where you said you were trying to rip
So
it out, right?
we could
If it's seized,
we
like
could
that,
move
it's
it.
fucked.
I'll send you that video. So
Yep.
we could move it in and out, but it wouldn't come out all the way. They had to take out the cam and then push it through the bore.
I mean, it got jammed up in there.
I imagine it would have
distorted
eaten some of the wall up. How would it not?
It could have did that the first
it's
time.
aluminum, right?
Built
Yeah.
it. Yeah. They built it 2 more times. Keep trying to go around that.
Sure. It could have happened from the last time this happened. The previous owner, and they slapped a new cam in it.
Yeah. So I was talking to the guys in the machine shop, and they said that if that bore is screwed, you can use it again, and you can just slap new lifters in, but the oiling's going to be all messed up, and it's just...
I mean, new LS blocks are pretty cheap, too.
Yeah, they're plentiful. It's not like you're dealing with some
you
weird
stuff. You
stuff.
could buy a brand new LS2 block for like under $1,000, I'm pretty sure.
Oh, LS3.
LS3, yeah.
But, so the plan, as of right now, the bore really kind of worries me. And there's been so much that's happened with this engine so far that I think it's
a rough life.
I think it's just doomed at this point.
Start.
So I'm either gonna get. I don't know if you've ever heard of a company called Blueprint Engines.
Yeah. I've heard of it.
You can get a whole brand new full long block assembled with like a mild cam in it already for $7,000.
Really?
Which I mean is a good chunk of change.
It's a brand new motor.
It's.
I mean, what about
warranty
your heads and shit? Were they all fucked too?
All right, so we got to backtrack a little bit here. The shop where the car is at currently, it was there for maybe a month, and he was backed up on a bunch of other shit. And I was like, listen, I'm not gonna be able to drive the car until next year, anyways. It's about to be winter time. Just take your time. I don't care.
Yeah.
So he was working on a bunch of other stuff. Yeah.
This is where it's gonna start getting real interesting.
This is where the story gets real sad.
You thought it was already rough? Oof.
Yeah. So the car was sitting in the parking lot, and I woke up one day to a text message from the shop owner's good friend. He's like, "Yeah, so the shop burned down today," and I was like, "You want to repeat that again?" And he's like, "Yeah, the shop's a complete loss." And I was like, "What about my car?" He's like, "I don't know yet." I was like, "Well,
this could be it. Peter bought a car. It's fully insured. It has motor problems, and it may have just burned down. Like this is about to get a happy ending."
When I got the text, I was just like, "Oh, I hope the car was in the garage."
Same thing. I don't want to sound like a scumbag, but as soon as I heard it, I was like, "Oh, thank God, Peter's car burned to the ground."
It's funny because my initial reaction was like, I'm going to be devastated. Like, I just bought this car to have fun with. It's already had issues. We were about to get them fixed.
He didn't even really want the car. I kind of had to, push him into it a little bit.
I wanted the car, but...
it's just scary to make that jump.
Yeah, I knew that was coming at some point.
It's a lot of money.
It was the Coyote talk.
It was like OCD
But
should have just bought a Coyote.
It's involuntary. That's the word.
My initial reaction was that, oh no, what am I going to do? And then I went to work that night, and one of my coworkers was like, "Dude, if it's burnt down, that's great. You're just gonna get money for it." I was like, "Well, I didn't even think about that."
Probably when you had into it, at least I would say close to it.
It'd probably be close.
So I found out, I think it was the next day or the day after that the car was not in the garage. It was in the parking lot. But all of the parts that were ripped off the engine were in the shop when it burned down. So. It was one of the heads. It was
the only good shit.
The lifters, valve cover, a bunch of random shit.
Basic, yeah.
But the
heads is a good one.
The most annoying part of that situation is that the car only came with one key. I originally thought, when I first bought the car, that I was gonna buy another key right away because I wanted to have two just in case.
Dylan.
Dylan's gotta go potty.
And
I told you we shouldn't have invited him.
I already
just talk about Coyotes the whole time.
At this point, Chris had already locked a key in his Corvette a month prior.
I did. It was the worst.
You got a video of that too.
The worst 4 hours of my life.
I was like, well, I need to get a second key ASAP so I don't run into that problem. And then this happened. My only key was lost, and it's not a physical key. It's a push button, so it's just a fob. So in order to program a new key into that system, you need to have an existing fob in order for it to work. So I had no fobs.
Oh my God.
So for the past 2 months, I've been racking my brain trying to figure out how to get a new key programmed into this car. Because if I had to get a whole new BCM just to put a new key in this thing.
I was talking about this with a coworker of mine.
If the car is not running and moving, how do you...
How do you program a key? You can't turn the computers on because it's going to see the motors out of it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And then how do you put the new motor in and be like, all right, I think it's right, but we can't start the car.
Insurance should cover all this. The key burned.
So what...
Yeah.
The shop owner said that he's pretty sure that his insurance is going to cover everything of mine that was lost.
Okay.
So I think it was like $2,000 worth.
You said only one head was in there? They were
One
both
head,
there?
yeah.
Was it hopefully the bad one, or how does...
Yeah, it was a bad one.
All right.
That might work out.
Either
might
way,
work.
no matter what we do with this engine, I'm going to get a set of the high flow GM performance heads, which they literally perform just as good, if not better, than if you were to get your heads ported by like Texas Speed.
Oh wow, yeah.
So they're great. They're like
that
$800
works.
a piece. They're really not bad.
That's not bad.
No.
It's really not.
Um,
Considering the LS3 heads are
Did you
pretty
wash
sought
your
after to
hands,
begin
Dylan?
with. Did you wash your hands?
Yeah.
So I was talking to one of my good friends that works at a Chevy dealership, and I asked him, I was like, so have you ever had to, like, have you ever come across this situation? He's like, no, I've never had to do that, but I'm going to do some research. And he said that he was contacting a bunch of people, and he found out that you need, I forgot exactly what he said, but you need like one dongle that plugs into another dongle that plugs into a laptop, and you need to have Wi-Fi wherever the car is, but the car's outside at a shop that already burnt down.
So
there's
their router,
no internet.
their router is probably no bueno.
Yeah. So he's like, it's going to take some interesting work, but we can get it done. I was like, all right, cool. So I went to the dealership and I was looking up prices on a new key and a second key. And it turns out that one of the parts guys that worked at that dealership had a brand new Corvette key in the back, and he sold it to me for $70.
Oh.
So I have a brand new key, and I called my mechanic. I was like, listen, I just got a new key. One of my buddies thinks that he can program it. Just we'll take care of this engine shit, and then we'll program the new key. He's like, oh, I already did it. I was like, what do you mean you already did it? And he was like, well, I got a buddy that works at Paddock in Kenmore, and he came out with his laptop, and he did it all.
Oh wow.
I was able to do it.
He gave us a brand new key. He programmed it. Everything's good to go. I was like, sweet.
So
So
now
now I
you
got
have
two
two
brand new
keys.
keys.
One last thing to worry about.
Well,
Yeah.
now you have two keys.
I got to order the insert that goes on the bottom, like the physical key. So that was the only good news we've had so far.
Yeah.
But at this point, I'm probably going to get a whole new engine for the most part. It's either going to be a Texas Speed short block that's stroked out to like I think it's a 6.7 liter. It's like a 418 cubic inch.
Oh, killer.
Or it's going to be the Blueprint engine.
I would go with Texas Speed. That's my personal opinion. Blueprint's more like old school. They do a lot of like small block shit.
They're like what? It's like similar to like Jasper for the most
they're like
part.
a Jasper.
Yeah.
Well, Texas
Which is
Speed.
nothing wrong with Jasper.
They're like an LS expert
Yeah.
kind of.
That's all Cletus goes through.
Yeah,
I would-
they
I
know
would
how to
go
set
to
them
them.
up. I mean, not saying a
Well-
Blueprint can't, but you know it's gonna have every little secret.
They have
trick
way
you can-
better cams too. You'll
Yeah.
gain like 80 horse off their cams over.
There's a company called Thompson Motorsports. I don't know if you guys have ever heard of them, but
Yeah.
they're big in LS engines too. And there's a performance company out in, I think it's Delaware or Maryland. They're called RPM Raceworks. I'm pretty sure.
Yeah.
RPM Motorsports.
Yeah, I've heard of RPM Motorsports.
Yeah.
I think they do a lot of Coyote stuff too.
I'm not sure, but they work with Thompson stuff too, and apparently people like it. So it's either gonna be Texas Speed, Thompson, or just a whole new long block from Blueprint.
You take it out, put a good set of radios on it, and pop the rear end in it.
Yeah.
We'll be making this video again
Well,
next year.
That's the other sad part now is because so now all the motor
Took it to a
work.
garage and there was a flood. And
You know, he wanted to have the trans gone through zero problems. So now it's
So yeah. So
might as
now
well just add the rear end, the rear diff to the list, man.
I got to take care of the engine first,
snowball.
and the transmission's still messed
gonna
up,
be
so
enough
I
to
got to
get a
have that
flood.
looked at. And there's a performance shop out in Rochester. I forgot what the name of it is, but they're a direct dealer for RPM transmissions, which is
nice.
based out of Tennessee, I
Do they
think.
beef it up a little bit?
Yeah,
RPM's
so
what you want. That's a
RPM
good trans
is
company.
the most well-known company for
Corvettes
Corvette
specifically.
transmissions. So
They do like cryo treat the gears.
yeah,
and
so
stuff.
they do like that whole cryo treat thing. They put the it's either carbon forks or bronze forks inside, so they're
Yeah.
real sturdy. All new synchros, like they'll literally go through the entire thing for you.
I
How
would
much
love-
is that? It's
yeah.
worth it. I would do it if it's already fucked. I would
Yeah.
spend a little bit
I
extra.
want to say it's probably $3 or $4 grand.
Yeah,
It's really not that
It's not
terrible.
terrible.
Like, it's a lot, but
So
you know.
I'm hoping I can have all this engine stuff taken care of by.
You probably should hang on to this car for a little bit.
I'm
really
going
get your
to.
money's worth.
At
At
this
this point,
Yeah.
I hate to say this, but you're so in the
Hold on,
red.
dude.
I am.
Just
Yeah.
enjoy it. You know, be
Pound
that guy
on
that's
it.
taken it to cruise nights in 40 years. Like,
Yeah.
let me tell you about this
Yeah.
car.
As long as you keep up on it, it's always gonna drive great.
Yeah.
It's one of those cars. No matter, it's just so nice to drive.
Mhm.
So it's not like it's ever gonna. You know.
Every car guy has their horror story. I think you win this one in my book.
A little bit.
So
Peter takes the cake on the
Yeah,
car
it
that he
beats
really
mine,
didn't
yeah.
On a car that I really didn't.
want that bad.
Yeah. I did, but
yes
I
and
didn't.
no.
It was,
Yeah, it's just
yes
it's
and no.
scary to pull the trigger and spend the money.
Mhm.
So
Especially on my first manual V8 vehicle. Like,
yeah, they're fun when they don't blow up and then literally almost blow up and then
Yeah, and one thing I did notice in the very short ownership of the Corvette that I have is everything's expensive. Most of the cars that I've beaten on and raced over the years, they were all relatively like cheap, older, easily accessible to get parts. Not Corvettes. At least not our years or newer. I couldn't even imagine a C7. But once
Camaro and Mustang's way cheaper.
it is,
Well,
there's nothing
they're
that could
different
really
animals,
break on our
yeah.
car
Do you-
that's not a massive amounts of money.
the main reason for that is because
The trans
is
setup.
in the back of the
yeah,
car.
Yeah.
axles.
So,
and
torque
transmission.
tube.
You got to drop basically the whole back end of the car in order to get the
Yeah.
transmission. out.
Thankfully, we don't have it was the early years of the C6 that
That's
had
how
the
the motor
faulty
comes
dips that
out
was
Yes.
split.
too, right from the
Thankfully.
bottom. The motors, right?
What?
What do you
Corvettes,
I think they pull them from the
motor-
top.
I don't think they come out the
Do
top.
they?
I think they come out the bottom.
I
You
bet they
can-
could
you
come
can
out
pull them
either
on the
way.
top, Yeah.
You can?
Yeah.
I think so. I think F body. I know an F body. You're
Yeah,
better
F
off
body's
dropping
You
it.
dropping the. Yeah,
I figured
man.
it was like that.
So, yeah, I see why you would think that.
Let's order food.
All right, we'll pick up from that. We're going to order food. Like and subscribe, guys. If you got some horror stories, comment below. Let's see what you got.
Love hearing
If you're
horror
local,
stories.
maybe we'll have you over here, have a few brewskis, and you can tell us.
So
Like and subscribe. What do you at what?
it's always fun to laugh at someone else's horror stories.
Thanks, Dylan.
Well,
Misery likes company.
that's the Coyote Boy.
Like and subscribe, guys.